Previously on Ravens Over Everything.
Just signed 35-year-old Desean Jackson to a deal. Nothing about this is gonna matter. Nothing about this. I'm seeing people in these different comment sections. They're acting like this is an amazing move. This is a terrible move. You guys are just feeling nostalgic because you're thinking about when he was in his prime 10 years ago. Like, come on, man. I've never denied that this guy at his peak was one of the best deep threats of all time. He was a great player, but at the same time, this dude played when I was in middle school. And this is not a Tom Brady type of player or a Von Miller type of player or somebody who, all these years later, they're still playing at a high level and still aren't dealing with as many injuries as Desean Jackson. No, this is a guy who's more like the typical NFL player at this stage of their career, at this age. They are not somebody you can rely on to come through and make a difference. Not only make a difference, but also even stay healthy for a full season. This is a waste of time.
So I'm going to stop it right there. Obviously, that was a video I had recorded and uploaded over 2 months ago on October 21st of 2022. Right around the time where they just announced that they signed Desean Jackson. Obviously, that did not work out, them signing Desean Jackson. As we sit here right now, well, as of a few days ago, about 3 days ago, the Ravens have waived Nick Boyle and Desean Jackson. To the surprise of nobody. Look, man, no offense to Desean Jackson, because again, like I said in that video, look, at his prime, Desean Jackson was great. We know how elite he was. But guess what? He's older, and he's coming to a team that unfortunately, as of right now, they don't value offense, and they don't have a competent offensive coordinator who could even use Desean properly. And then when you add that with the injury issues that he's had just since he's been on this team, it was a recipe for disaster. You knew he wasn't gonna last. You just knew he was, man. You knew he wasn't. He missed several games because of injury. He couldn't even play, 3-4 snaps in a row because every time he turned around, he pulling a hamstring or something. He had a few big plays. But again, like you said, like we saw, every time you turn around, he's getting, he's hurting himself again. And again, it's not his fault, but he's older. And signing a guy like Desean Jackson, the reason I said in that video that it was a bad decision was because of the fact that, considering where Desean is at in his career, and considering the state of our wide receiver core and how bad it is, Desean should be somebody who should be added to a team for depth, not to be like our best option. Like if we had a loaded roster, like let's say we had the Bengals receiving room where we had Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. If we had a loaded roster like that, that's when having somebody like Desean Jackson, that's where it's, you super excited because now you're like, yo, this is somebody, he could come in to be more of a role player who adds more depth to the receiving room. He can make big plays every now and then. Obviously, there's not going to be a lot of pressure for him to come in and save this receiving room like there is for the Ravens. But that's not the case. What happened? A lot of fans who had nostalgia, just like I said in the video, they had nostalgia. They was thinking about them days in Philly. They were thinking about all the big time touchdowns that he got that were 50, 60 plus yards. And they were thinking about what it could be and not the reality of what it was most likely going to be, which is what we ended up seeing. We ended up seeing the reality of it, not the fantasy that people wanted to see. The fantasy people wanted to see was they wanted to see Desean Jackson come on this team and ball out and finish the year with 4, 5, 6, 700 yards and a bunch of touchdowns and a bunch of this and a bunch of that. And that's just not what happened. In reality, he missed several games. He hurt his hamstring and probably some other things. He played in like 7 games. He started 1. He had 9 catches for 153 yards and no touchdown. Now, one of those catches was obviously that big 62-yard catch, that bomb that Lamar dropped on him back in, I forgot what game it was, but it was a couple months ago. That bomb that Lamar threw up that hit him 62 yards down the field. Again, showing that he still has a little bit left in the tank, but not much, because again, he's 35 years old. He's been playing since I was in middle school, and he has injuries. It is what it is. It's, again, when I said what I said in the video, it wasn't meant to disrespect him, but again, I'm just calling it for what it is. Signing him was, again, in my opinion, it was a waste of time, because our receiving room needs a jolt of electricity. Just like how the Ravens went out of their way to bring in Roquan Smith, and even though our defense, despite the blown leads, was still just fine without Roquan Smith, and they were hitting their stride and getting better week over week before Roquan even got there. Obviously, Roquan coming still added a certain spark to that room, to where it seems like a lot of people feel motivated to try to play harder and be better and blah, blah, blah. And he's leading by example, blah, blah, blah. Desean Jackson was not the equivalent of that. Desean Jackson couldn't do anything for this receiving room. You needed to go out and try to get DJ Moore. You should have went out in the offseason and got Amari Cooper. You should have made a play to go get Jerry Jeudy. I don't care that he was dealing with injuries early in the year. We just a few days ago, at the end, in the last game of the Broncos season, what happened? Jerry Jeudy had a career high in yards, 193. And that's on an offense that is performing arguably worse than us. But even though they have better weapons than us. But again, Jerry Jeudy still, even if you don't consider him a first-tier receiver, he's definitely at least second-tier. He was still good enough to where he could have added that spark. He could have been that spark. Amari Cooper could have been that spark. T. Higgins a couple years ago in the draft could have been that spark. George Pickens, who we just passed over to get David Ojabo, he could have been that spark. A bunch of these guys could have been that spark. But the Ravens did not want to do that. They wanted to take the cheap way out, and you get what you paid for. And the Ravens got what they deserve. They got what they deserve. Like always, they went cheap on offense, and it backfired in their face, but they don't care. They don't care. The only reason they're going to start trying to pretend like they care now is because now it's blatantly obvious, because Lamar's sitting out. Because in my opinion, I think Lamar could go back out there, but I personally believe it's not in his best interest. Now, you have some people that they're trying to throw shade at him and act like it's a bad thing if it turned out, now we'll never know, but if it turned out that he in fact was making a business decision and prioritizing his long-term health and not risking further injury, even though he could technically go out there and play at 80%, people are trying to act like that's a bad thing. No, that's a great thing. Not only for his long-term health, obviously, but also because of the fact that people are finally starting to see just how bad this Ravens team is. They've been calling people like me crazy for years now, because they kept trying to convince me that, oh, we got the receiver, we good, we got this, we got that, the team's good, it's just Lamar. No, it's not. Lamar was saving this team. He was not the problem on this team. The problem is you got bad coaching, you got a bad head coach, you got an overrated head coach, you got a bad offensive coordinator, you got a bad team of coaches altogether, you got bad receivers. You got a GM who's not doing a good job. You got an owner who clearly doesn't care about winning. He just cares about profit. And the person saving all of that is a quarterback named Lamar Jackson. And now that he's not there, you got to truly see just how bad these receivers are. See, people always talk about how Patrick Mahomes elevates the guys around him. People always talk about how Tom Brady elevates the guys around him, which is true. They do, obviously. But not enough people talk about how much Lamar elevates these terrible receivers. Because the proof is in the pudding. When Lamar's in the game, Lamar on his career, he's averaging 28 points a game. When they put other people in there like Tyler Huntley or Anthony Brown, any of these people, these guys are struggling to even score 17 points. They're struggling to get that far. Like, so far on the season, towards the end of the season when Lamar went out, what were we averaging? Like 12 points a game? You think that's going to win in today's NFL? Especially once it's time to play good teams, because during that stretch, people were giving the defense kudos and saying that they were doing really well, but you also got to remember, during the last month of the season, dude, we were playing whack teams. Like, we weren't playing a bunch of dangerous teams. Like, the most dangerous teams, besides the Bengals, who we just played, the most dangerous team might have been, the Steelers? That's about it. You know what I mean? And they're rebuilding. Like, they still got a lot of work they got to do. They just happen to have more weapons than us on offense. So that, you know what I mean? So they're still technically dangerous. But the Falcons aren't really dangerous. The Panthers weren't dangerous. The Broncos weren't. Like, all of these teams, on paper, we should have destroyed them. But instead, it ended up being either a close game that we barely won or we flat out lost. But it is what it is, man. Desean Jackson, he's clearly frustrated about it. He put up a cryptic post on social media saying something, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something to the effect of, I'm tired of all the politics and BS. I'm done, which to me sounds like he's retiring. I could be wrong. He might just mean he's done with the Ravens. If he was, I understand. But even if he's retiring, I understand. It is what it is, man. You have countless players who have come to this team, and when they leave, it's almost like they were trapped in a bad dream or something, where they come out on the other side and they're just like, what in the world just happened to me? Like, you see it time and time again with Desean Jackson, Dez Bryant, Hollywood Brown got drafted here, but I'm gonna still count him. Hollywood Brown, Willie Snead. You're seeing several receivers, once they come here, once they get out, they're just like, what in the world did I just experience? Like it seems like they're traumatized by just how garbage this offense is. And this offense may, if Desean did retire with that post, this offense may be so garbage that they forced Desean to retire. Like, he couldn't mentally handle just how pathetic this offense is. Yeah, it's very weird. I'm not gonna say weird. It kind of is weird, but it's interesting to just see this play out, because here we are again. You wasted money on a guy who you don't need. You need somebody who's gonna who's in their physical prime, who's young and in their physical prime, and who could actually make a big difference on this offense. You need those guys. You don't need a old veteran, old injury-prone veteran who is a shell of his former self. With all due respect, like, that's what he is. You don't need that. That's the type of someone in Desean's position. That's the type of guy. That's the type of guy you bring in when you already have a bunch of really good receivers, and now you just want to add some depth to the team. That's where Desean can be really dangerous, obviously. Crazy enough, if the Bengals signed Desean Jackson, I think that would be amazing. I'm not saying they will, but if they did, that would be amazing. Because, again, you already have to worry about Jamar, Higgins, and Boyd. Now, all of a sudden, you throw Desean in there as just a role player who comes in every so often and catches 50-yard bombs from Joe Burrow. That would be very dangerous. But, again, the key is they already have arguably 3 number 1 receivers on the same roster. Meanwhile, on the Ravens, they have no number 1s. They don't have any number 2s. They don't even have, really, they don't even have number 3s, dog. If we're being honest, man. A lot of these guys shouldn't even be on a practice squad. But yeah, man. They also, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but they also waived Nick Boyle. I don't got nothing to say about that. It is what it is. if they're doing this to free up money for the offseason to make some offensive moves, I would be happy about it. But if they stick to their old ways and just, do what they normally do, then again, this is still just all wasting time. And it's all going to backfire. But, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section below. Are you sad to see Desean go? Do you think that he was a waste of a signing? Or do you think that the Ravens wasted a good opportunity by not using him correctly? I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section below about this.